I have interviewed my guest today dozens of times over the span of a decade, so I'm always happy to have him on the program. Please welcome former Congressman and the host of the Liberty Report, Dr. Ron Paul. Dr. Paul, it's always an honor to have you on.
Great to be with you again.
Yeah, well, offline we were talking about how far back we go. And I remember when you gave me that big scoop, over 10 years ago when you were looking to audit the Fed. So I'll always be grateful to you for giving me that opportunity to break that story. We've come a long way from those days. And here we are in a digital world, Dr. Paul. And the first topic I want to address with you is digital currencies. You've always been an advocate of a return to some sort of gold standard. Now the IMF is talking about a return to some sort of Bretton Woods monetary system, but not with gold, with digital currencies. Is this a good idea?
Well, I don't like the IMF. I don't like these international organizations. I don't like our national organization called the Fed. So I'd be very cautious that if it's the issue of money, I think it's a very, very important issue. I think my association both with gold as well as the cryptocurrencies is the fact that I really like the idea of competition and crypto people like competition, and yet sometimes I think that they have to be careful because the governments aren't complacent and they don't just ignore us. And I keep thinking, well, they say, yeah, but you warn about some of the problems they could have with crypto and the government invading and sending you a tax bill and all. And I said, yeah, but the problem is more universal. Just think of what they did in 1933. They stole all our gold, and we weren't even allowed to own gold all the way up until 1975. So it's this issue of the relationship of government and central banking to the people that's a big issue. So I admit I'm not an expert on how the technology provides the cryptocurrency, but I'm really interested in competition to allow it and to point out the shortcomings of central banking. And I think that's what's happening. People will think, well, these central banks, they only know one thing, and that is print more money. But the big question, I think you sort of alluded to this, is are they going to get involved and try the same technology, and then they won't have to concede anything to privatize cryptocurrencies? And they will not, the central banks, our Federal Reserve, will not ignore what's going on in the crypto system. And, not too many months ago, I guess it's a couple of years now, I asked Bernanke if gold was money. He said, no, that's not money. I think the question now that is going to be resolved is cryptocurrency money. Is it real money? Is it going to last? And of course, the people in this argument points out a lot of characteristics about crypto being somewhat similar to the metal. So that is what I find fascinating. I try to watch both to just find out how this debate goes.
Well, that's interesting. You had a talk with a former Fed Chair, Ben Bernanke. Can you tell us more about it? Was it centered around gold?
Well, it always was around gold when they came before the committee. And for Bernanke, he was before the committee. As a matter of fact, this was late. I was getting ready to leave Congress. But one of the last questions I asked him, I said, is gold money? And it's astounding. He paused and he paused and he paused. It seemed like a long time, but probably wasn't real long. And then he said, no. I said, well, it's been money for a long, long time. I said, why do all the central banks hold gold if it's not money?
Good question.
But I think the big question now, if I were there now, I'd probably pop the question on is cryptocurrency money and see what he'd say.
Absolutely. And on that topic of central banks rolling out their digital currencies, we're seeing it with China. They're already testing a digital currency. The ECB, it will likely be next to roll out some sort of digital form of euro. The greatest argument against central banks rolling out these digital currencies is control that they will have over the money system, more control and intrusion into people's spending habits. Where are they putting their money? So is that the real concern, Dr. Paul?
Well, I think those questions aren't answered, and I think they will be because, if I'm in a skeptical moment, I'll say, well, I can't quite visualize somebody buying a hamburger with crypto. Maybe someday, maybe there will be enough time because they do show that it might not be all that complicated. So I think that has to be ironed out. But, early on, I went to a lot and I've attended a lot of the crypto meetings. And but I've met people there that said, well, we have to have a lobbyist in Washington to make sure that the SEC is around because that'll give us more credibility. And I said, I want less of that. I don't want more of that. And then you read the stories about the exchanges. They're not totally unique. And I don't know who has to use them and who don't have to use them. But I do know that some people have had bad results with that. They use them, and all of a sudden you have some agents there talking to you about the details. So when I think about these things and the shortcomings of gold and of crypto and some of the positives, I always go back to the one subject I've talked about, for a long, long time, and that is our personal liberty, the marketplace, letting us determine it. And that is where the real problem is. So even under the gold standard, it didn't work, as they thought it would. It took a lot of years, and the government's still very much involved in manipulating, gold because they don't want gold to win the fight in the argument because gold indicates that the dollar. That's how you measure the dollars. I had one interesting early morning breakfast with Volcker. And I was just one staffer with me and one staffer with Volcker. It was a private breakfast. And I remember Volcker was the last one to arrive. The first thing he did, this was in 1970, 79. No, I'm sorry. It was when gold hit, that would have been the late 70s, 79, 80, when gold hit $700 and $800. That was big stuff then. So when Volcker walked in, and I've known him for a long time, I thought, oh, there he is. I'll go over and shake his hand. He was interested in one subject from his staff. What's the price of gold?
Wow.
So the price of gold is still on their minds. And I think, as usual, they will get involved in the marketplace. And they're going to, so I'm always suspicious of what they do. But evidently, the people who know and understand crypto would argue, well, they're not going to be able to interfere with the crypto like they've been able to interfere with the gold price.
Were you optimistic, Dr. Paul, when you saw the nomination of Judy Shelton, a proponent of a return to a gold standard that's since taken a back seat? But were you supportive of that?
Yes, but I also recognize the shortcomings, of this. I work with the people that have, not the solid gold standard, 100% reserves and this sort of thing, but they have worked with a gold price rule, and I think that's what she would probably support. And I think anything that will emphasize the importance of gold. Which means the importance of precious metals, which means personal choices and limitation on the ability of a small group of people and organization who love the extension of credit. They love the manipulation of interest rates, the whole insanity of what's going on now, creating trillions and trillions of dollars. There's $3 trillion already this year, and now another trillion. And they're arguing on peanuts. They're arguing who gets these 5 billion here and 50 billion here. But it's something that is really, really significant, and yet the people don't quite understand. The one thing I've noticed over the years, though, is from that time when you and I talked years ago about auditing the Fed, and since I went to Congress in '76, the interest in monetary issues, the interest in the Federal Reserve has grown dramatically. So they've had to defend themselves because I figure that system's going to fail. So something's going to replace it, and exactly what that replacement's like, I think, is up for grabs. But there's a lot of people who speculate what exactly will replace what happens when you don't have a Federal Reserve manipulating every single thing that happens, every dollar spent, and what interest rates should be, and finally figure out, negative interest rates seems to cause more harm than good.
And I want to flesh out the Fed in a bit, but just to wrap our segment here on digital currencies, I guess the final thought with China rolling out or in a hurry to roll out some sort of form of a digital yuan is that an attempt, do you feel, to dethrone the US dollar as the official reserve currency of the world?
I wouldn't be surprised, but why should that be a big deal? They're more involved in capitalism than most people give them credit for, because they make a lot of stuff and we buy a lot of stuff and we send a lot of money over there. And our money is just manufactured at the Federal Reserve. So they're doing us a big favor by taking all those dollars. And yet on the long run, they're getting a dollar that's losing its value too. But one thing they have done in a capitalistic manner is they haven't, I'm sure they invest in precious metals, but what about all these rare metals, which are so vital? And we don't do well there. So the communist version of capitalism is they are very competitive. And for them not to be involved in crypto analysis and understanding, I think all the countries are talking about that now. But that in itself shouldn't decide our foreign policy, because there's other things to be concerned about. National security is not dependent on how they spend the dollars that we dump in their lap, and they've been able to compete with us. And I want competition, but I think Trump had it right. Don't subsidize the enemy.
Thanks for watching part one. We have part two of our exclusive interview with Dr. Ron Paul coming up. In the meantime, continue to follow Stansberry Research on all our social media channels. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Thanks for watching.